This is the next video in my cross versus gravel series where I'm comparing a full-on gravel bike to a cyclocross bike, talking about the differences. Are there differences? And if there are, how significant are they? So I'm really excited about today's test. What I'm doing is taking the bikes out on some single track, and then I get to a point where there's a hill climb. So there are three things that I'm looking for in today's test. One, how do these bikes compare when riding single track? Last weekend was our state championship cyclocross race, and about 25% of that race was on single track. And I really appreciated the snappy handling of my cyclocross bike. It performs so well. The other thing that I'm going to do on this test is I'm going to do a hill climb that takes, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It's pretty steep, and then it flattens out at the top. And then, well, I'm going to time myself on that hill climb and see how the bikes compare on a climb like that. And then I'm going to just go as fast as I can back down the hill and see how stable the bikes are. It's all off-road. It's kind of double track, that hill, but it gets fairly bumpy for a double track. So I'm going to wear my camera, and we'll just have a chat as I ride, as I talk about the characteristics of these two bikes. I'm starting off on the gravel bike. I'm going to do an out and back, so I'll go out, do the hill climb, come back, switch over to the cross bike, and do a comparison. So far, the gravel bike is feeling pretty good on the single track. It flows really nicely. At slower speeds, you can definitely feel that the front end of the gravel bike kind of flops around a little bit more. The steering just feels a little more heavy on the gravel bike, but once you get the bike moving, that translates into a bike that's pretty flowy and stable on the single track. Handling the roots nicely. I'm going to warm up, and then I'm going to do my hill climb and time it. All right, my hill climb, I'm going to do a really slow rolling start so clipping in isn't an issue here. And I'm going to do both timers. Go. Try to start off without blowing up in the beginning. .222 on that one. All right, so I'm going to go back down this hill and try to get the speed up as best I can. Probably won't go as fast as I do on a mountain bike, but I'll see what we can do here. Oh, I'm just going to coast. All right, so this bike does feel really stable. The faster you go on a gravel bike, the more the stability just improves compared to a cross bike. But I'm going to withhold anything else until I jump on the cross bike and talk about how they compare. I'm going to throw in one more unplanned test on this thing. And I'm going to time myself on piece of single track that'll be really short. It's like 1.5, 2 minutes. And see how the bikes compare on a very flat but very twisty piece of single track, where it seems to me the cross bike will be faster with the more snappy geometry, but let's see, I'm curious. All right, I'm gonna time myself on the single track coming up. Just a short section, kind of straight for 100 yards or so, and then it gets kind of curvy. And I'll just start this little tree right here. $2.55. All right, so now I'm on the cross bike, the giant TCX, and you can notice right away the front end feeling more snappy, but the bumps being a tad bit more harsh. It's not a surprise. I tell you what, the gravel bike really impressed me on the single track. I thought it would feel a little bit more sluggish than it did. The stability was a nice added benefit that wasn't overshadowed by a bike being more sluggish. So yeah, you can easily use a gravel bike for single track. And in fact, if you live out west where the single track is more flowy, not quite as tight as we have on the East Coast, there's a deer, it'd probably be preferred over a cross bike. Tell you what's going to be real interesting is that little single track test I did at the end. I think the gravel bike's going to hold its own on that section. Look out, dude. Those deer, man, they're so used to bikes out here now. They don't even move. All right, so I'll keep warming up and then I'll do my hill climb. All right, here we go. Hill test on the cross bike. All right, so initially it seems like the time was the same on these two bikes. Like, this is a Strava segment, so after the ride's over, I'm gonna go back and look at the Strava time. That way it'll be a little bit more accurate. Now I'm coming to the downhill, same thing. I'm just gonna kind of get my speed up and see how stable or unstable the cross bike is on this downhill. On the faster downhills, the cross bike doesn't really feel unstable. It just feels like it requires a little bit more of your attention. You can be a little bit more lazy on the gravel bike. You also feel like you have a bit more confidence on the gravel bike because of the comfort. So the bumps don't hit you quite as harshly. The cyclocross bike just feels really lively. So I'll keep riding the single track, and then we'll get to the final test, which is comparing the lap time on this bike, that short little segment. That's where I feel like the cross bike is going to have the biggest advantage when the trail gets tight. That requires that deceleration and acceleration. That's why these cross bikes are so fast on cyclocross courses, because you're always accelerating and decelerating. Okay, starting the single track section on the cross bike. All right, so on the single track section, I was 4 seconds faster on the cyclocross bike. So 2:55 on the gravel, 2:51 on the cross bike. And that's a section that required a lot of, like I said, decelerating, accelerating. But if I had to pick a winner for single track today, it's the gravel bike. And I can't believe I'm saying that. And the reason I am saying that is because of the stability, but more importantly, the comfort. It was just more enjoyable. The bike just absorbed bumps better. I kind of figured the gravel bike was just going to be for gravel road riding, and if I wanted to ride single track, I'd pick the cyclocross bike. I'd actually pick the gravel bike more often. That's not saying I wouldn't ride my cross bike out here, because it's great training for cyclocross racing. The cyclocross bike, it does feel livelier, so when you're absolutely throwing the hammer down and doing a lot of accelerating, the cyclocross bike it's a little bit more enjoyable because of that kind of just racy feel that it has. But just for overall riding, I'd pick the gravel bike. Now keep in mind, the gravel bike is carbon, so we're talking a high level gravel bike. If it were an aluminum gravel bike, I'm pretty confident I would stick with the carbon cyclocross bike. Now for the hill climb, Strava said that my time was 3 seconds slower on the cyclocross bike, but my stopwatch showed that the times were about the same. So I think it's pretty safe to say on just a steady hill climb, there's really not much of a difference between the two bikes. Even though the cross bike is 3 pounds lighter, it seems that the lighter weight comes into play more of the power climbing. So just steep, short climbs, fast acceleration. That's where the lighter bike comes into play. If that's not a concern to you, a 3 pound difference, really it doesn't matter a whole lot. So those just steady effort climbs, not much of a difference. So the next test that I'll do in the next week or two is, like I said, putting the aluminum wheels from the gravel bike onto the cyclocross bike, because there is a noticeable difference in comfort between these two bikes on single track. The bumps are just more harsh on the cross bike. How much of that is the wheels? That's what I want to determine. So I'm excited to do the next phase of testing to see where that comfort is coming from, how much is in the frame and how much is in the wheels. So stay tuned to the channel, and that'll be coming up in the next couple weeks. Thanks for watching.